you have a Bible, you can follow along, or the notes will be up on the wall. So we are on our fourth session of What the Bible Doesn't Say. The text that we're going to be going through today is James 1, 2 through 4. The topic is perseverance and suffering. What does the Bible, or what doesn't the Bible say? Suffering always comes from sin. And what is the big idea of this message? No matter what the cause of our trials is, we know that God will use it to strengthen us in our walk with him. Just a background on the author of the book of James. James was the brother of Jesus. And the funny thing is, James didn't even believe Jesus was who he said he was. And he literally grew up, spent his whole entire life with Christ. And it's one of those things, like, as the brother of Jesus, like, how can you, like, doubt that? Like, to me, it just seems like, you know, the brothers would go to Mary and be like, can you believe who this guy says she is? Like, to me, it seems like Mary would be like, yeah, actually, he is the virgin birth. And then it would kind of be like, what? No, that's okay. You know, that just seems weird that even Jesus' own family kind of denied who he was, along with everybody else. But it was one of those things after the death, the burial, the resurrection. James literally had a coming to Christ moment. He revealed himself to his brother, and he ended up becoming one of the leaders of the new church. And I just find James, I find the book of James actually very fascinating. I love it because the way James speaks, it's not really your typical theological doctrine. James is one of those people. It's like he cuts straight to the point. He's going to call you out on your stuff. It's like, I don't care what you know or what you say. I want to see you do it. You know, go and do it. I don't want to hear about it. I want to see it. And that's kind of how I wish my relationship could be with God. That it was, I'm so confident in my faith that I could stand in front of people and just be like, James. Let's take a look at the top 10 nations where it is dangerous to practice their faith in Christianity. North Korea, Somalia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sudan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, and Eritrea. And yet Christians that live in all of these nations are persecuted like every day. The fact that you have a Bible or even a page from the Bible, or the fact that you speak of Christ or that you speak of God, people are put to death. And despite all of this, like the reality of it, of people knowing that they could be dragged from their home at any minute out into the street and shot in front of their families, in front of their wife or kids, so they could watch their wife or their kids be put to death in front of them because of their faith in Christ, going through these trials. And it's like they're willingly to do that. And it's like you kind of look at our relationship as Americans. We really don't have the same struggles and persecutions as that. And it just seems that trials, man, I hate this thing, sorry. That when we face trials, that it's harder for us to really look at the bigger picture, kind of like how other people do. I can say for myself many times that there's been times I've faced trials, and the first thing I kind of do is I want to give up and kind of be like, you know, God, why? Well, why would this happen? You know, why would you let this happen to somebody else? Why would you let this happen to me? You know, like, why isn't this going, you know, better than what it should have? And I don't think our sin really has anything to do with why we're being tried. Maybe it'll play like a very small part of it, But I don't think it's our personal sins that all these things happen. And if you look at Scripture, everybody is tried. Everybody goes through struggles. And it's through those struggles that your relationship with God strengthens and renews. You look at Job, you can even look at Jesus, look at everything that he went through. Look at the disciples and the apostles in the book of Acts. All the leaders of the church were all eventually put to death because of their faith, their beliefs. They went through these hard times, and through those hard times, not once did they say, you know what, I'm tapping out, I'm done, this is ridiculous. James 1, 2-4. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testings of your faith produce perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may mature and complete, not lacking anything. How is it even possible to find joy in a time of suffering? Let's look at different types of trials or struggles that we could deal with in our lives. Maybe it's financial struggles. Maybe you lost your job or you got demoted at work. Maybe hours have been cut back. Maybe it's a large amount of medical bills that you're struggling with now, not being able to pay everything off. You have all this debt piling up. That's very trying. I'm sure everybody in here can agree with that. That in those situations, it's very frustrating. It's very discouraging. How am I going to provide? How am I going to provide for my family? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Health struggles. Maybe it's physical issues, maybe an injury or an illness, or maybe a mental health issue, depression, anxiety, seasons of fear and anger. Maybe it's family struggles. Maybe it's marital issues, constantly fighting, a separation or a divorce, or maybe a death in the family. I think we can all agree that all of those are very hard things to deal with. And when we're faced with those things, it's hard to look at it with joy. I'm pretty sure we can all agree on that. Most of all, what about spiritual struggles? Your faith being questioned by friends, family, coworkers. Seeds of doubt being planted in your head by the devil. What about people that work in ministry? I'm sure that Jeremy or any other pastor or somebody else that you would talk to could tell you about struggles that they've dealt with at different churches. What about starting a ministry and trying to reach out to people and not seeing the results that you want? The struggle with that. I'm sure that's very challenging. What about if you're leading a church and you get people to constantly come up to you saying, you know what, you're not meeting my spiritual needs? It's very hard to take care of everybody's needs. I'm sure parents can agree with me on this. It's not like you can do one thing that's going to satisfy your spouse and your kids, that everybody kind of needs their own attention. And when people feel that they aren't getting that attention, what happens? The screaming, the bickering, the arguing, the fighting. All these things are very hard to deal with. What about trials of the church? As the church as a whole, you get people that show up. They're not happy with things. They take off and take people in the church with them. You have some bad apples show up to the church, start stirring up the pot, turning the church against each other. These are all trials of the church. And I'm sure everybody that's sitting in this room right now, everybody that's listening to me, has experienced at least one of those things that I just said today. And when you experience that thing, you did not have joy when it happened. I'll be the first person to tell you, I definitely have not had joy in anything that's happened in the past few months. And I know I say this every time I preach, but it's like every time I go to speak on something, it's like God's like, you know what, you're going to put it to practice before you speak on it. And man, it's rough. And I tell Jeremy all the time, I'm like, man, you know, would you want to, you know, we were talking about doing this series. And I was like, man, I really want to do these two. These two look like really, really fun. I like those topics. And then it's like, once I realized this is the one that I picked, I was like, oh, man, better I'll just shoot myself in the foot, you know? But it's going through all these things that we have a hard time with. All right, there we go. That we're supposed to keep joy. You look at James 1:2. How do we keep our joy? Not be discouraged. Because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. When your faith is tested, it's like taking gold and putting it through fire, burning off all the impurities of it, making it something pure again. James is saying, when your faith is being tried, be sanctified by the Holy Spirit. Work with it. Work on your patience. Patience is also the fruit of the Spirit. When you face these hard times and you don't give up and you're putting God first and you're saying, you know what, this whole thing right now, it stinks. I can't do it on my own. You know, help me out. And you keep your faith and you wake up and you fight that battle every day. And you're patient on the Lord's timing, not yours. Even when you're not seeing the results that you want, but God's making results happen, in the long run, the end results are going to be so much greater than anything any of us could be like, man, this is the situation right now. I have absolutely no money. I've lost my job. I have a ton of medical bills. Can't afford to buy medication that I need to deal with medical issues that I have right now. And it's like you look at that and you're like, this giant's going to kill me. Look what happened with David. He said, today, God's going to deliver you to my hands. Defeated the giant, and great things happened to him. And that's the same thing that James is talking about in here. When you're being tested, do not get discouraged. The same God that created the heavens, the earth, the water, the air, the plants, the animals, everything that he provided for us before he created man, we had everything we possibly needed before we were even created. How awesome is that? That our provisions were already here before we showed up. And all God had to do was just put us in the middle of it and say, you're taken care of. It's the same thing here. If he can do all of that, and he can use not the greatest examples of people in the Bible for great things, then what makes you think that God's not going to deliver you from what you're going through? That God's not going to deliver the church from the season that it's going through? Let's take a look at 2 Corinthians 1 through 5. For just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. Christ suffered many trials throughout his life. From the time he was born, King Herod wanted him dead. People were looking for him. It was just, he had that axe over his head. He was baptized. He went out to the desert. And if you, I'm not going to go through the whole entire thing, but if you look at Luke 4, 1 through 13, the whole entire time that he's being tested and tried by the devil, and the devil is saying, hey, I will give you a way out of this if you do what I tell you. Or I'll give you a way out, and I'll give you everything that you need. And what does Jesus say to him? God's all I need. I don't need to live off of bread and water. I can live off his word just fine. How many times in our life have we been able to look at an issue and say the same exact thing? Once again, I'm guilty. I'm guilty as charged. I wish I could do that. And the thing is, I know I can do that. But it's a lack of faith. It's a lack of trust. If you look at Luke 6, 22 through 23, blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you and insult you and reject your name as evil because of the Son of Man. Rejoice in the day and leap for joy, because great is your reward in heaven. For that is how their ancestors treated the prophets. Leap for joy. Through trials, rejoice. Leap for joy during hard times. Why do people keep saying that? You're going through a hard time. Why would you? People are going to treat you the same way that Christ was treated. Loyalty will be broken, and your closest inner circle is going to abandon you in great time of need. Your name will be dragged through the mud, and you'll feel lonely, all because of the truth of the gospel. And when that happens, leap for joy, because the reward in heaven is greater than anything we can achieve on earth. We will be treated the same way that Christ was treated. Someone in his inner circle, Judas, betrayed him, turned him over to the Roman government, and he was put to death. I know that, like, if one of my good friends was like somebody that I spent all my time with turned on me like that, and it was like, I wouldn't be leaving for joy. Personally, I'm the kind of person, I'm the most loyal person you will ever meet. I will go to war for you. But it's like, once that loyalty is broken, it's like, I'm a fighter. What it's telling you here, that these things are going to happen to you. People are going to insult you, and all this is going to happen all because of the truth, all because the Son of God. And that you should be happy and leap for joy. Like when you were a kid, Christmas morning, or even your birthday, it's like, you wake up in the morning, you open up that gift, you see something, you start jumping up and down. I can't do that anymore because I'm fat and I have bad knees. But still, when was the last time we've been so excited about something as adults that we had that kind of joy inside of us, that we were so giddy, that we were jumping for joy? When was the last time we actually experienced and felt that joy? I'll be honest with you, there's like 2 times since I became an adult, and well, actually no, 3, because I'm being recorded. So I got to say my marriage, when I got married, I have to say that, because if I don't, I'm sure I'll hear about it later. And then when my 2 daughters were born, it was like in those moments, it didn't matter what was going on around me. It didn't matter what this world thought or what was going on. That joy deep down inside of me was so much more powerful than the fact that it's like, man, I'm gonna have to go back to work next week. Or after the first kid, it was like, I have to do diapers. But I was smart though, because my wife was like, if you do all the feedings at nighttime, I'll do all the diapers. And she was like, okay. And then it turned into, hey, you feed the baby all the time, and then I'll do all the diapers. And then that joy was gone. But seriously though, like I said, that feeling of joy that you got when you were a child, when you got that toy that you wanted so much, close your eyes and just think about it. How happy and excited you were. When you first had your relationship with God, did you have that same joy? Did you have that same experience? Because what James is telling us is something happens, that same feeling that you had then is what you need to have now towards all these things. Because it might stink now, but the reward in the end is so much greater than we can comprehend. My second point, be patient. James 1:3. Because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And just like I said, it's like when you put gold through the fire and it gets rid of all the impurities. It's God's not doing it because he doesn't like us, he doesn't care about us. But when you get to a certain point in your relationship with God, and he's blessing you, you are being obedient, and everything's great. Look at Job. If you look at him, he was the textbook person. He was blameless and just. And God tells the devil, like, my man, right there. And the devil goes, okay, well, what happens if you take everything away from him? Is he still going to be your man? And then God goes, go ahead. He knows Job's heart. That's what God is allowing to happen to us. It's the blessings, the things that he's provided for us, our daily needs. We become so complacent and so comfortable with what we have that eventually our relationship, whether we want to admit it or not, we kind of get blinders. It's like, okay, God's provided everything. I'm showing up to church on Sunday. I'm tithing when I can. I'm reading the Bible whenever, I get a minute. Even if it's that annoying like pop up every morning, like at 1 o'clock in the morning, you forget to turn your alarm off or the sound off, and it's like alarm goes off. You're like, oh, daily Bible verse. I just read it. I'm good for the week. That's how we get. The blinders go on, and then God goes, okay, well, you're faithful and you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. But what happens if something happens to you and you have an extra medical bill. What happens if, your job has to cut back on your hours, or they have to get rid of another supervisor and you're the low man on the totem pole, so you get demoted? Wonder if you end up having some type of sickness or an injury. It's not because God's out to get you. He's trying to say, are you still going to have that same faith tomorrow after all this happens that you did yesterday when you had everything? Look at Romans 5:3. Not only sin, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Once again, when you're suffering, be happy. Leap for joy. If you can't leap for joy, then you gotta do the happy dance or whatever it is that you do. Don't get discouraged. Be patient in God's time, because when you do, we will receive God's praise. Has anybody like when you were a kid and it's like, you made your bed for the first time, like you were so proud, or you did a project at school and like the teacher or somebody was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. It's like that feeling you got, like when you first learn how to tie your shoes, you're like, yes, I'm independent now. Still working on that now at 33, but I'll get it. But that feeling of being praised, it's what everybody wants in life. Everybody wants to be accepted. Everybody wants that praise. It's when you're going through these hard times. Receiving praise from God. Not Jeremy or me or somebody in your family. That when you're going through such a hard time and it's like you feel like you're drowning, you can't keep your head above the water, but like I said, every day you wake up and you fight. And you become patient and you persevere through it. How awesome is that? Because if God's praising you, surrounded by angels, everybody's like, you know what, good job. How awesome is that? Seriously, just take a second and think about that. That while you're going through these struggles, when you feel like you can't keep your head above the water and that these things are crushing you, eating you alive, that even those little steps that don't feel like progress at all, and when you're going in the right direction, it's like when a child walks for the first time. That encouragement. And the whole time we're going through that is exactly what God is doing for us. He's rooting for us. He's cheering for us. And then when we make it through, it's just like the prodigal son. That's how I picture it. That the father takes off running, arms open wide towards us. That we were able to keep our eye on him and not what was killing us. Acts 5:41-42. The apostles left the Sanhedrin, rejoicing because they have been counted worthy of suffering disgrace for the name. Day after day in the temple courts and from house to house, they never stopped teaching and proclaiming the good news that is Jesus the Messiah. Why would a bunch of people be so excited to just like, hey, I'm worthy of suffering. I'm worthy of being beat to death within an inch of my life, and then literally like thrown out of a town. You know, John was poisoned, and like they threw him off a cliff, and he didn't die. But it's like you look at this, all the apostles, everything they went through, and it's like they were excited about it. You know, I've never met anybody that's like, man, I can't wait to wake up tomorrow and get the snot kicked out of me or have something bad happen to me. But it's like they ate, slept, and lived the gospel. They lived the mission, and they saw the picture. The apostles, they faced their hardship, and they stood their ground. They kept moving forward. Just like I've been saying, it happens, move forward. All this stuff was going on, not once did any of them say, you know what, you're right, this is it. I'm done, I'm tapping out. No, they went back to the temples. They went back to the towns. They kept going. They kept preaching. They kept talking about the great Messiah, the King of Kings. Just the opportunity for us to be able to accept the gift of the cross is an amazing thing. It really is. And it's like all that joy that you have there and knowing that. And it's like all of this is going on. And this is what it's taught, that what that verse is talking about with the apostles. They know that the world needs to be reached. They know that other people need this joy. They know that other people are living in fear, that they're struggling. And they know that people desperately need to hear about Jesus, whether it's risking their life or not. I wish I could go through the book of Acts today with you guys and just, it's an amazing book. It really is. And if you look at it, all the disciples and you have the apostles also, everything that they went through from the time that Jesus left them until they were put to death, not once anywhere in that book do you see anybody tapping out. And it's like going through this, it's like, man, I could really sit here and touch on so much about the book of Acts and how we're supposed to live and how we're supposed to face our struggles and face these issues. But when it comes down to it, though, you really look at it, and it's like in Acts 9, or is it 8? It talks about pretty much the story of Saul of Tarsus, same man that went around with people kicking in doors, persecuting Christians, testing their faith, putting people to death for their faith, did a complete 180, and he was the guy that was being tried, tested, and put to death for his faith. Number 3, look towards the end. The results, look towards the end results and do not fixate on the issues that are in front of you. James 1, verse 4. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. By being perseverant in God's trials, by being patient, that his will is much more sufficient than ours, we must work diligently towards God, not away from him in his timing. It's by doing this that we will grow in our faith, become a more mature Christian, and glorify God with our actions of faith and obedience. Oops. I'm going to close with this. Everything I just talked about. Look at the story of Job. I'm just going to give you a quick breakdown. I'm not going to go through the whole entire thing. Job was blameless and upright. God allows Satan to attack him. Through his trials, losing his health, his children, his livestock, his wife tells Job, pretty much give up. It's done, it's over with. Your God left you. Give up. But he didn't. He stood firm in his faith. Job's friends feed him a bunch of crazy lines that Job's being punished for his sins. Job's friends lead him on a goose chase for answers and giving him poor advice and guidance. And this whole time, Job is standing firm in his faith. You go all the way to the end, and God rewards Job. Everything that Job had before, and it talks about how much Job had. He had servants. He had so much livestock. He had all these crops, all these land. He had all these kids. He was blessed beyond blessed. And because Job was willing to wake up every day, put his faith in God, and fight through it, he was blessed 2 times as much as he was originally. And that's why I'm saying. That's why James and everybody else says, tomorrow if you wake up and you get injured, tomorrow you wake up and get laid off from your job, or tomorrow something crazy happens with your family or whatever it may be, just have joy in knowing that in the end, through your faith and obedience, that God's going to do something completely amazing and other people are going to see it. And that'll be a testimony of God through you to other people. People that have either gone through that or that are going through it, and then they can see, man, so-and-so's really going through a hard time, and I can't believe it. They're not miserable. It's, I know that he used to have a bad drinking problem. I'm surprised he didn't go back to his old ways, or I'm surprised, he's still going to church, or whatever it may be. That when you wake up every day and fight that fight in your faith, through those hard times, you might lose friends, you might lose family, and it's rough. But take joy in knowing that what God has on the other side of that wall for you is going to be so much greater than anything you can think of, anything you ever dreamed of. Maybe it's a better opportunity. Maybe it's a better job, and you might make more money, and you'll have better hours, better benefits or something. Maybe you're having a hard time with a spouse, and all you guys are doing is fighting. Don't get me wrong, I know what it's like, guys. You wake up and you're just like, oh my gosh, please stop talking. I get it. But then again, ladies, I feel you. We're stubborn and ignorant because we're men. We don't use our heads. Okay, so now that I've stuck up for everybody, just know that when you face these trials and these hard times, no matter what it is, no matter how difficult it is, if you are faithful and obedient and you're willing to submit to God and put your complete faith in Him, your marriage is going to be blessed. You're going through health issues. People go, well, when you get cancer, you get cancer and die. Do it with joy. Your life, everything you do, is a testimony of God, His greatness, His powers. Just as the apostles, they lost their lives, but the whole time, what did they do? They woke up every day and they fought that battle because they knew of the great rewards that they were going to receive when they became face to face with their king. Whatever you are facing in your life right now, I guarantee you, it is not bigger than what God has for us on the other side of it. I guarantee you, anything you're going through right now, it is not big enough that you'll never get through it. Once again, who created everything that we see, everything that we know, everything we smell, touch, taste, hear? And we can't take pride and joy in knowing that the one that created all this, the one that provided this, is not going to be able to provide for us on the other side. I'm going to challenge you guys today, individually, and I'm going to challenge you guys as the church. There's going to be struggles. There's going to be hard times. But starting today, no more excuses. Even me, I will head up this revolution. That's what you want to call it. No more excuses, no more giving up. Because Christ didn't get to the cross and go, no, I will do anything but that. I'm not doing that. He didn't give up on us, so why are you going to give up on God? Why? Because we get in the way of ourselves. Our pride, our motives, our desires are the things that get in the way of us and the cross. Whether you're not saved or you are saved, that is the biggest thing that destroys people and that destroys the church. You either have no faith or you're putting your faith in the wrong things. You're putting your faith in money or you're putting your faith in a person. And today's the day, just like James says, cut it out. You want to accept the cross? You want to accept my son? God's son, Jesus, you want to accept that? Today is the day that you knock off the shenanigans. Because today is the beginning of the rest of your life. And no matter what happens, you face a battle, you're going to get through it. Your faith will be in me, not in the world, not in man, not in money, not in materials. And I'm challenging every single one of you that's here today. I'm not telling you come up here during decision time. I want you guys to seriously reflect on this, everything that we just went over. Seriously reflect on this. Because I guarantee you every single person in here right now is going through something. I'm not saying open up about it. I'm not saying when we're done recording, we're going to have a thing. Someone stands up and goes, I'm Josh, I got problems. Everybody knows I got problems. But still, this is the day that you guys stop the excuses. You stop putting money and man and everything else before your relationship with God. Because when you don't have that faith in God, you don't have that obedience. You go through these trials, what do you have? Honestly, what do you have in the end? And don't tell me faith. Seriously, I better not hear a single person tell me faith. Because that's the truth. All right, let's close this up.